I'm supposed to be initially taking a kid to dancing, but then I'll be like, no, my husband, he's going to have to do it. I'm like, no, daddy's taking you today because mummy's got a customer. So it's becoming more visible, and that's kind of making me feel a wee bit better about it. But yeah, that was something I hadn't even thought about. It was like, not, the impact on the kids, yes, financially and security wise, but not actually their perception of, their mum working, or not working, which is what they thought. So yeah, that was pretty horrible. But I think we're hopefully starting to come out of that, and they'll see it as they get a wee bit older that it is actually a proper job. And again, although it would never have been planned for, obviously everything that's gone on this year and is still going on this year with, COVID, so many people are working at home now that weren't working at home, and it's probably going to become more of a norm anyway. I know a lot of people do it, a lot of the time, but for people that hadn't been doing it, I think kids will kind of appreciate that a lot of the time their parents do work from home, and it's maybe not going to be such a visible difference. Dad that went out all the time and mum that just dropped you at school, waved bye-bye and picked you up at the end of the day and sat and drank tea all day, So
that's what we do. I know, no, that's a really interesting point actually, and especially for you coming from the science tech side of things where women aren't traditionally in those roles, or there are less women than men anyways, that would add a different dynamic, because you're thinking, this is me showing the girls like they can do something that's maybe not a traditional girl's career path, and then going off to do your own thing. I always think of it as, I guess because I didn't have an influence that did run a small business as a kid, and I never thought it was something I could do. So I always think my daughter kind of gets both sides of it, because my husband, he's a civil engineer, so he has a kind of very rational science brains kind of job, and then mine's the total opposite of that. But it's funny because I remember when Charlotte was kind of, not when she started at nursery, but fairly recently, they asked her at nursery, I guess, what do your parents do for a job? And so they asked her, what does mum do? And she went, mummy takes photos and spends a lot of time on her computer. To her, that's in the mind of a 3-year-old, that's what my job is, running a business as a photographer. So, but you're right, their perception will change over time. And your girls are old enough now, as you say, they've looked at your website, they see mums meeting clients at the weekends. I'm sure they're interested to see your studio and see what you're actually doing. You're making things with your hands. So I think they could get value out of it all. I think kids will get value out of so many different things, and had you stayed in a career in science and tech, they would have got, that would have been a great influence for them. But you're also creating a great influence for them now, showing them that actually you can leave a high paying, stable, high status kind of a job to start your own thing if that's going to make you happy. And you've shown them that you had that, but you decided a different path. And I think that means something as well. When they're old enough to really talk to them about that, that'll show them that no matter what decision you make, maybe you decide to go to uni and become a lawyer, and then 10 years in you decide, actually, I don't like being a lawyer, I'm going to start a business making soap or whatever it is. And they'll never feel like that option's not there because they've seen their mum do that.
Yeah, that's true. And like you kind of mentioned there as well, like if I hadn't done this, even just sort of looking at a career in the creative side of things would, and to be honest with you, I don't know if I would have encouraged it in the girls. And if one of them, grows up and does end up to be particularly creative and maybe, wants to look down, this sort of an area for their career, I would probably have worried in the past about, oh my God, that's, how are they going to do that? That's not going to pay the bills, or it's going to be really, really hard to pay the bills. I know now it's possible, but also looking at, I've come into this career much later in life, and I, come into it through, not having gone to like art college or whatever, or anything like that. And actually, if they had a sort of, a real kind of solid plan that this was the kind of thing they thought they want to do, then art college or whatever, down in Galashiels or, Central College of Martins or something like that, that's a, a valid, of course they were valid anyway, but it wasn't an experience of mine. But I could now encourage that as well. Actually, if you want to do that, there's probably a better way to do it than I did it. That if you want to do it from the start, that's great, and you'll get in there and you'll get taught properly, from the start, what's kind of required. So it kind of gives me that perspective, which I definitely wouldn't have had 10 years ago. Thinking that one of my kids might want to I don't know, make clothes or be a fashion designer or something like that. That was just a kid on thing when I was wee, playing with pens and whatever. But actually, it's a really pretty solid career, and there's excellent training in Scotland that you can get for that. So yeah, things change.
I totally agree. I think I was really into like drama and theater and anything visual arts. Like I was a huge film nerd when I was a teenager and things like that. But I never really thought of it as a career. And even in uni, when I started in kind of film and theater studies, and I took a lot of writing courses. And then I went, right, I can't really continue in this. I can never make a living off of it. I'm just going to go into journalism and communications. That way I can make a living and still feel like I'm being creative writing. But realistically, had I kind of gone more into the photography and film side of things, I might have just gone for it back in my early 20s instead of waiting until I was kind of in my early 30s and going, all right, I should probably give this a go. I'm really keen on it. So yeah, it's interesting how that perspective changes. And I do think that as we see more and more small businesses popping up, not that I think it's a trend just now, but I think more and more people are realizing that working for yourself is a pretty great thing. And you are seeing like a big push for like supporting small and supporting local. And that's another one of the good things I think that's come out of lockdown, is that there is more of a push for that. And I hope that continues. I would like to think that will continue. And maybe more and more people will be encouraged to kind of just make a go at it, whether it was just a hobby or a passion or something they've always wanted to do.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's quite sad, obviously, everything that's going on recently, and there are more and more people that are going to be losing their jobs, unfortunately. But yeah, there are options out there, and hopefully, that this will make it, there will be quite a change, I suspect, and the way people are working once it's all over and done with, if it's ever all over and done with, but yeah, it's like you say, it's not something I ever thought I would do. It's not anything I don't want to say I never thought it was a valid career, because I never even considered it as a career, if you know what I mean. I just kind of thought, oh no, that's it, I've gone to university, I've learnt this, I've worked my way up in various companies, and that's that, this is what I do. And I was happy doing it. I mean, I wasn't unhappy. I really enjoyed my work most of the time. But yeah, this was just a total change, and it's right now it fits better with my life, like having, it wasn't, having the kids wasn't the reason to do it, but it helped immensely, and I now find that those 6 weeks in the summer and 2 weeks at Easter and 2 weeks at Christmas and October, whatever, it's covered, it's okay, and I can try and sort of arrange customer appointments and things around that. It's really not hard. And we'd kind of originally been talking about, from when my oldest daughter was at school, it was the summer holidays was like, well, I can take 2 weeks, you take 2 weeks, and then we've got 2 weeks that we can't cover. What do we do? And then you're using your holidays to look after your children, but you're not actually spending any time together as a family. And I mean, I don't like to slate that or whatever, but because I know there are options out there are kids clubs and things, during the day that that were there, and it's not always an option for everybody. And other parents people manage, and it's just the way it is. But this has worked out quite well for us so far. Touch wood.
I think
we'll see.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like for some people, it works. It works having two working parents, or one working parent and one stay-at-home parent, or whatever. But you just have to find what works for you. And I know for me, my mum, she didn't stay at home full time. She stayed at home when we were really small. She was doing a master's degree actually when she got pregnant with me. So she was at home a lot, and then she took some work in the evening. So my dad would work all day and my mum would go to work for a few hours at night, and that kind of worked for them. But I know that was a little bit of a struggle because they had such little time together and somebody was always at work. And I think maybe that stuck in my head a little bit, and I wanted something a little bit different for us. So my husband works a kind of very normal 9 to 5 sort of a Monday to Friday job, and mine's a bit all over the place, but I like that. I like that I can be flexible. I like that I was able to have more time with my daughter than when she was little than maybe I would have had I stuck in a traditional career. And even now, like I normally work a Monday to Thursday. I almost always work a Saturday, but I have Friday and that's her day with me. Pre-COVID, we used to go to a music class and go for lunch, and obviously that's all a bit up in the air right now, but it's just nice to have that option and to be able to be flexible, as you say, with holidays and things like that. Right now she's in nursery, so we're lucky you know, over the summers and things like that, our nursery is still open. But yeah, that won't be an issue for us. We'll just be able to work around it. And I think that must be really difficult for a lot of people trying to find a way to make that work.
Absolutely, yeah. Because again, like I still live in Glasgow. My mum I live in the north side of Glasgow. She lives in the south side. It's not far away, but it's, you know, with, you know, one child in the morning deciding that, oh, I'm not well, I've got a sore throat. It's not a 5-minute journey to my mum's to drop her off and then get where I worked in Stirling, you know, so the commute there was, you know, it wasn't awful, but to get to the south side of Glasgow, then all the way back over to Stirling would have been a nightmare. You know, we don't have that kind of family support network within a kind of 15-minute radius of us here. So it was always a bit stressful, and that kind of, I'm saying that stress has been taken away. Don't get me wrong, there's still stress. Like, you know, even though I'm in the house working, when we have had those situations where a kid is going to be off for the day because they're not well, I'm like, there's one child, which is, you know, who I can plonk in the living room on the couch with a blanket and let them, you know, watch television, no problem. If it's the other one, she's never going to leave me alone. She's like in and out there, oh, I want this, I want that, and, you know, comes into the workroom and I'm like, ugh. So the stress is still there, but it's not the same. You know, I know I don't have to go begging to my boss and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, can I not come in, you know, and have to make the time up later. That kind of additional level is gone. So yeah, it's good that way. It's definitely good that way.
Yeah, I think so. And that's maybe one of the biggest benefits for a lot of people is the flexibility, kids or not, being able to make your own schedule. If you're having a day where you're not feeling great or you're not feeling very motivated, maybe you give yourself a morning off and take a long walk and you come back feeling better. Yeah, so I do think it's a big benefit, and something that I always found hard. I was never very good with routines, and I my whole life people said to me like, oh, you know, when you get to university, when you get your first job, when you become a mum, you'll love routine, you'll be a morning person, and it's just never happened for me. So I think this job, as much as sometimes I am working well into the night, having the flexibility to do that and say, you know, I'm not feeling it right now, I'm going to go take the dog for a long walk and I'll make up that hour or two later on. You wouldn't be able to do that in an office job. My husband, for example, is expected, well, now he's working from home, but he's expected to be at the computer between those hours, and that's just the way it is. So
definitely. No, it does. It makes a difference. And you're talking about routine and things like that. It's not so much a routine that I need deadlines. I absolutely need deadlines. And that gives me, you know, the kind of impetus to go on with something, you know. And that was always fine, no problem in my other job and this job as well. You know, I get a customer. I know when I've said the next appointment is going to be and what I've got to have done by that. I know when the hat is due for, you know, final delivery or whatever. So that's okay. And then when COVID hit very nicely this year, and all the orders went out the window, it was kind of like, okay, you know, things were a bit yuck for, you know, a couple of weeks, and I was a bit like, oh my God, this is really bad, but hey, it's going to be fine in 3 or 4 months. Obviously turns out it wasn't, but you know, whatever. But I did kind of think, well, okay, you know, had in the background a lot of things that have been sitting on my to-do list for business that I haven't been able to do because, you know, trying to get on with actually making hats and things. So I had, you know, like updating sections of the website, improving SEO, bits to do with like Google Digital, and setting up various other systems in the background to do with like legal stuff for rental and things. And I thought, that's fine, I'm going to get on and do that. And I did. I would make a start, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to get a cup of tea, you know, that thing, and go and make a cup of tea, whatever. And because I didn't have somebody standing over, or I didn't have a customer who was expecting this to be completed by X date, whatever it is, it was just so easy to let it slip, you know. I just didn't have the motivation. I need to know that I have a deadline in order to do that. And that's been really hard this summer. I mean, obviously it's been, you know, I haven't had the customers this summer. You know, I've had a handful of customers over summer as opposed to, you know, a normal summer. I'm up to my eyes in it. You know, that's kind of the business season. So the few customers that I have had, it's been amazing. It's just been so refreshing to be like, oh my God, I have to do this. Somebody is paying me to do this, and I have to get it done, you know. And the kind of difference as well has been is like a lot of the weddings that have been happening over summer and over the next few months or so, most of them have actually been quite short notice, you know, because couples have just gone, you know, they've had their wedding postponed to next year, and they've just thought, you know what, no, let's just do it. Let's just get it done. We'll do it with the 15 of us or however many it is, you know. And it's usually within about, you know, maybe a 4 or 5 week window, or maybe even 3 weeks. I had one mother of the bride last month who came to me 2 weeks before her daughter's wedding. And my normal schedule for making a hat is my minimum is 6 weeks. That's what I usually